Releasing courtesy of Bounty Films is a film called The Last of the Pretty Boys. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of The Last of the Pretty Boys, Dustin Schmidt. Dustin, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, this is such an intriguing film because when I first looked at it, it looked like a documentary. But in actual fact, it's a fictional story that you've constructed around the Brisbane music scene. Tell me about the origins of the film.
Well, I've been playing in bands for about 13 years now, various bands around Queensland, and recording and touring and playing shows. And I guess all of those kind of experiences really fed into the story. I mean, the character, there's a little bit of every lead singer in all the bands I've worked with, including myself and then Lazarus and other people. And yeah, I think I just wanted to try and capture Brisbane and the local scene here. And yeah, very early on, we decided that that sort of documentary cinema verite style would work best for this story. I felt like really wanted you to feel like a fly on the wall, kind of capturing these kind of intimate moments with this very larger than life sort of figure that you usually would only see this very kind of controlled image of who this person is that, like, the companies, record companies and whatever put out of these type of characters. But I wanted to kind of really just get into the nitty gritty and really explore kind of all the stuff you don't see, I guess.
Okay, so turning this into a fictional story with Lazarus Graves as the lead, so to speak, that must have been an interesting process for you in terms of fashioning the screenplay.
It was kind of, it was an interesting one to write, because usually when I start writing a script, I just sit down and however many months it takes me to write, I just write until I finish. With Pretty Boys, when I sat down to initially write it, I was going for more of like a Hard Day's Night kind of comedy. And then once I started to kind of really get an understanding of who Lazarus is and where he's at, I was like, this tone just does not work for the story that I need to tell here. And I kind of set it aside for about a year. So just always thinking about it in the back of my mind, and then just sat down and smashed the whole thing out in like a weekend, because I was just like, all right, now I'm ready. Now I know exactly what this needs to be, and had every kind of scene sort of visualized. And yeah, but it was an interesting process. And yeah, there is I think the whole story, we're really using Lazarus as a vessel to explore this world. Where he's at as a character, he's very disillusioned and unhappy with his life, and he's just kind of being dragged from one place to the next. So we would kind of get all these like wonderful little character actor sort of moments in here with all the various sort of side characters we get to kind of see as Lazarus is kind of being dragged from A to B. Yeah, that was really fun to write.
And casting, is it Alex Jackson as Lazarus? That must
Yeah.
have been an interesting process for you as well.
Well, I actually wrote the script for Alex to play that role, because we've been playing in bands together for years. I couldn't really picture anyone else as that character but Alex. It was, yeah, that was the easiest decision to make out of all the casting choices. And I also, sorry, I just also wanted someone I knew was a musician as well for those songs. And like, because we had played in bands together and we had that repertoire, I knew that we'd be able to come in and get in the studio and make some really cool music for it too. I thought that was a really important thing, having someone that could authentically play a rock star.
Okay. And it's actually interesting to look at the Brisbane music scene, which is probably not so well known across the rest of Australia. So I found that quite interesting to see what is going on in Brisbane.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really thriving right now. There's just so many new bands, but I think I mean, even going back to like Powderfinger, even back into the 70s, like, the Saints were one of the very first punk bands in the world. I think Brisbane's always had a vibrant scene, but I guess not everyone knows about it. I guess it's a bit more kind of underground than some of the other music scenes in the country. But yeah, that was really important. And I mean, I've been playing in a band like regularly gigging since I was 17. So I knew a lot of musicians in the scene. I was kind of able to draw in a lot of people and a lot of bands. The entire soundtrack are all local Brisbane bands. And growing up, one of the most important local bands to me were Violent Soho. And we were able to get Luke Henry, who also plays in DZ Death Rays, to come in for a cameo. That was really special. And yeah, it was awesome being able to work with everyone and kind of call in favors with everybody I've met in the last decade and a half.
Well, you've got a huge cast in the film, so was it easy to attract all of those people?
Surprisingly, it was. It was. Yeah, we just got a really wonderful group of people. I think everyone was just really keen to make a movie. Um, yeah, a lot of the crew were people that I went to film school with. They're all just chomping at the bit to make a feature. And yeah, the casting, it was an interesting process. There's some like really long casting processes where it took us ages to find a role, and other times there was be a character where I just go to my friends, "Hey, you're playing this role," just depending on what we needed. Yeah, and yeah, I was very very surprised at how kind of smoothly it all kind of came together. I guess everyone was just really excited to be a part of it, which was awesome.
Okay, okay. Tell me about the financing, the production behind you to make the film.
Um, that process was really smooth as well. We found an independent um financer who was happy to um put the money in. It was really, we made it for like the absolute bare minimum we could make a movie for, essentially. So I think, yeah, once the script started writing, winning some awards, I think it was just a really quick process to get it all made. I think we had about 3 weeks of pre-production between getting the movie greenlit and we started filming. But again, we were filming a couple of days a week, so we'd have time, in between each shoot to prep for the next shoot, and it was kind of an ongoing process because a lot of the cast and crew were still working full-time jobs while we're making it. So we're just kind of, yeah, making the schedule work to suit to everyone's needs, and just, yeah, doing what we had to do to make it happen. Building our own props. So I've got the Lazarus sign back here. I had a friend who designed stage lights that was able to do us a good deal on it, and just a lot of hand making all the t-shirts and the fake cigarette packets and the fake like Uber logos and all that kind of thing. It was a very kind of hands-on DIY process as well. Like, yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
Oh, look, well done on that, because as I said, it felt like a documentary, but of course it's a completely constructed story, which I found intriguing. How long did it take to shoot overall?
It was about 6 or 7 months of, yeah, just filming like 1 or 2 days a week. I think it was about maybe only 23 shoot days all up over that time.
Mhm. Okay. And how easy was your actual directing process? Because putting it all together, um, pretty much yourself, is quite a task.
It is. It's the biggest undertaking I've ever done in my life. It completely kind of consumed all aspects of my life for about 3 years. Um, but I love the process so much. I guess it's one of those things. I've gone to film school. I've done short films and documentaries and music videos, but none of that can really prepare you for the reality of making a feature length movie. It's just a completely different beast. It's one of those things I feel like you don't really know how to make a movie until you made a movie. It was maybe about the halfway through point where it feels like, okay, all right, now I know exactly what I'm doing. Now I feel like it's just like another day on the job. It's a bit of a process, but yeah, it's great. It's so much. There's so many different aspects. There's the filming of it too, but like the editing and doing the score and the songs, and like, I guess I probably did a lot more than like you regularly would, recording all the music and all the other stuff as well, and eventually took over editing myself when our editor got sick. And yeah, just massive undertaking, but it's just the most creatively rewarding experience of my life.
Were there any particular films or filmmakers that inspired your approach to the film?
Yeah, I love the kind of the '90s independent scene. A lot of those filmmakers, Quentin Tarantino, Richard Linklater, Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, that kind of very do-it-yourself attitude of that era, I think was a big inspiration. I mean, this obviously like '70s New Hollywood stuff played a big part of it too, especially in like the tone and the pacing of it all. And funnily enough, George Lucas, his early kind of experimental short films and documentaries and stuff, I think he very much had that similar kind of approach. Even when he was doing like American Graffiti and Star Wars, he tried to approach it like a documentary where it's like, all right, we're just gonna pretend that we're just setting up a camera in the middle of space and filming what's happening. I think that sort of attitude of like treating the situation like it's real and trying to come at it from that process of like, all right, if this was just happening, how would we film it like a fly on the wall?
Okay, well done on that. And have you now created a cult figure in Lazarus Graves?
I certainly hope so.
How did Alex respond to the film after he'd seen the final cut?
I think his first thing was he said was, "I get it now." Like, I think for him as an actor, it was harder for him to see the bigger picture. It wasn't until we were sitting in the theater watching the final movie that I think he completely understood my vision for it, and he was like, "Oh, okay." Before he said that, like, I trust in what you're doing, but I don't understand it. I guess it wasn't until seeing the final movie that he finally it all kind of clicked.
And I suppose your film, Last of the Pretty Boys, will now enter into the pantheon of music videos or music feature films, which in itself is a really interesting subgenre of filmmaking.
It really is, and I really um I mean I've been a musician since I was 12, so like I've been loving those movies my whole life, you know. So it was really, I guess, a big thing for me to make a movie like this, especially as my first feature. And yeah, I hope people like it.
So, being a musician, Dustin, what was the trigger point for you to decide to become a filmmaker?
um, well, for year 11 and 12, I went to this alternative school called Music Industry College, and I was very kind of I had my heart set on a career in music. And I started taking a film and TV class just as my backup because I think they only had 6 classes in the whole school and you needed 5 to get your OP. So I was taking film and TV as a backup in class in case I'd, failed any of my other classes or anything. And I fell in love with it. I started making these little like zombie short films with my friends. It was just so much fun. And then when I was 16, at the end of that year, they took us all to a school excursion to Melbourne to ACMI for the
Ah.
Tim Burton exhibition. And it was just seeing all the props and costumes and storyboards and everything laid out in the room in front of me just kind of really clicked it. Oh, this is something I could actually do with my life. And I think that day, I remember the day clearly because it was October 1st, 2010. That was the day I decided I was going to be a director. And it was exactly 10 years later to the day that we started filming Last of the Pretty Boys.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about taking over the editing process of the film. Tell me about the challenges there.
Yeah. Well, I guess when we first started making the movie, I hadn't edited anything in a while and I hadn't tackled anything that big. So I was a bit I had too much on my plate directing to really even consider editing myself. But I think the original editor, he probably cut together about 3/4 of the movie before I took over. So a lot of the harder work was done. It was just a lot of coming in and trimming scenes and making every tiny little shot exactly how I wanted it. I tend to be a little too meticulous at times with that kind of thing, but I think you kind of need to be as a director. You kind of want to make everything as perfect as possible. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy the editing process a lot. I think the next movie I'll probably will just edit the entire thing myself. I really like it. I'd probably do more editing than anything else. Like right now, I'm in the middle of editing 2 different documentaries, and I just finished up a couple of music videos. I love it. I love editing.
What is it about music films and documentaries that make them distinctive compared to feature films or music films?
Um, I think music videos, there's a lot less pressure. It's usually just one day of shooting and then several weeks of editing. But I think there's a lot more experimentation. I think you can kind of play around with different techniques in a music video to then apply to a feature. I find um, with documentaries, I guess it's different. Like with documentaries, I'm not someone who like ever set out to make a documentary, but here I am like in post production of 2 feature length documentaries just because there were stories I was really passionate about and I felt like I wanted to tell. Um, yeah, it's a very different process. It's a lot easier. You can there's less prep work. You don't have to plan out every single shot, and there's no script to memorize or any of that kind of thing. You can just you plan as much as possible, but there's a lot more freedom, to just find things in the moment, which I then try to apply into my filmmaking, especially with Pretty Boys. It was very like even the way we shot it with multiple cameras, and there was a little bit more room for improv and just finding things in the moment and just sort of being able to explore a bit. But I think it all feeds into each other for me. It's all pieces of the same puzzle, I guess.
Okay. What's the other feature documentary you're working on?
Um, well, there's two. One's about music industry college where I went to year 11 and 12. I was actually working on that before the last of the Pretty Boys. We are in pre-production um early 2020, and then COVID happened. And then by the time things had opened up again, we'd already got the green light for Pretty Boys. I think after we wrapped Pretty Boys, I had about 2 weeks off, and then I was straight into filming the documentary. And the other documentary is about Free Comic Book Day, which happens every year. All the comic book shops, they give out free comics, which, I mean, it costs the comic shops thousands and thousands of dollars to do it, but it's free for the consumers. And it was really interesting to just yeah, explore that and kind of explore the community around sort of comic books. And um yeah, I've been co-directing that with a friend of mine. He's in one of the bands that are playing in Lost the Pretty Boys when Lazarus goes back to his old venue he used to play. He's like the guitarist up on the stage there. He's had this idea again since about 2020, but because of COVID, Free Comic Book Day got shut down for at least a year or two, and it took a while for all that to come together. But that's been a lot of fun too. But I guess the other thing with the documentaries is you just end up with mountains and mountains of footage. At the moment, we're just kind of slowly going through and just trying to get it down to a somewhat watchable length. It's a massive undertaking in that regard, but the actual filming process is so much easier.
It certainly is. And what made you decide to title the film Last of the Pretty Boys?
I'm not really sure. It felt right. I guess I'd always loved those kind of larger than life makeup wearing rock stars, you David Bowie and Alice Cooper and those kind of characters. And there aren't really many of those type of shock rocker figures anymore. I think it was more just coming from a place of like what I wanted to see, and kind of creating, because there hasn't really been a new rock star since maybe Jack White was the last one. It's been a while since there's been any new kind of rock star figures. I guess it was trying to create a world that I wanted to see where, those kind of musicians can still be, just as big as the big pop stars of the day, which is probably never going to happen again. But it's wishful thinking.
Okay, very good. And of course, you've really explored the Brisbane music scene, which in itself, I think a lot of people would be very interested to see.
I hope so. And I tried to pick out a lot of my favorite sort of independent Brisbane artists that soundtrack every single song you hear in the movie. I handpicked myself, and that was really important to me, putting all that together and just trying to shine a spotlight on some of the amazing creative talent we have here, like even down to not just the musicians but the actors, and um, even like graphic designers, the logos for the talk show, or the fake cigarette company that we have, the Flying Dutchman cigarettes. Like, I got my friend Seven, who's a great graphic artist, to do that. And even like, yeah, everything. It was just really about trying to put a spotlight on what's going on here, and even just filming all the locations in Brisbane and Ipswich, and that you don't really see in movies very often. It was nice to see my world on camera, on
Mm,
screen.
absolutely. No, I think it's a really strong addition to the Australian music scene. So how is the film being rolled out?
Well, we started out. It's out now on to rent or buy digitally, like YouTube movies and Google Play and all of that kind of thing. July 23rd, the DVDs and the Blu-rays will be available. It's only a few weeks away now, and then it's just, yeah, hopefully a soundtrack CD is going to follow not long after that, and it's just kind of a gradual rollout. And we'll be putting up some of the music videos that we shot for the movie, and some behind the scenes type features. We ended up putting together a feature length behind the scenes documentary for the DVD and the Blu-ray. And there's even a mockumentary about Lazarus. It's called Behind the Makeup, like those kind of behind the music specials. We did our own one where it was a lot of just getting the actors in character and interviewing them, just improvising and riffing, and that was a lot of fun.
Well
Yeah,
done on
I
all of
just
that. Yes.
thank you.
You were just about to say something else.
Oh yeah, just I wanted to if people are gonna fork out money to buy a Blu-ray or whatever, I want to just give them their money's worth and put as much kind of fun stuff on there as possible, and some of it will be up on YouTube and whatnot as well. Just wanted to really spend as much time in this world as possible before we move on to the next thing.
Well, look, congratulations on the film, Last of the Pretty Boys, and I wish you well with this fictional film and the two documentaries that you're working on.
Thank you
We've
so much. Thanks.
Yeah, no, well done on that. We've been speaking to writer-director Dustin Schmidt for the film Last of the Pretty Boys, available courtesy of Bounty Films. Dustin, thanks so much for talking with me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, all the best. See you later.
Bye.